Groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the Lively Cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Brother Trucker kicking off our conversation here today on the Fallon Forum, broadcasting live from the Webcast One studio in the scenic Skywalk in downtown Des Moines, which I understand might be up for sale. So if you want to get your bid on that, and you've got millions of bucks to spare, take a shot at it. Going to talk about education today, and later in the program we're going to discuss GMOs, local foods, farm subsidies with a very vocal and well-informed farmer from Greene County in west central Iowa. That's George Naylor. But I want to kick off the conversation here with reference to news this week about Governor Branstad's education reform plan. This is in response to some data that is troubling. Minority students, in addition to minority students, children living in poverty, and those who are learning English or who have special educational needs, they continue to fall behind their peers when it comes to state assessments. That's what the data is showing us. And the head of the Iowa Department of Education, Jason Glass, this week directed officials at all of Iowa's public schools, all K through 12 schools in the state, to adopt an instruction and assessment method. It's always got a fancy name, called Response to Intervention. Well, that's a pretty simple name coming from a bureaucracy. This is an effort to boost student scores. It's one component of the reform initiative that Governor Branstad is putting forward. And with us to talk about that today is Andrew Rasmussen with the Des Moines Education Association. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Hi, Ed. Thanks for having me.
So, in a nutshell, if you can tell us from your point of view, what exactly is the proposed education reform proposal seeking to accomplish?
Right. I think what the governor says he wants to accomplish, and Jason Glass says they want to accomplish, is mainly focusing on getting better. They say getting better teachers, quality teachers in every classroom is what they focus on. And so most all of the education reform that you'll notice focuses on one factor in education, which is the teachers. Now, I'm representing the teachers union, so I obviously think that teachers are important. But there's much more that's not being focused on that would have an even larger impact on how students do, whether it's on an assessment or whether they actually learn something and can, So I think their focus is on ensuring quality teachers, and that's what they're worried about, and pretty much holding teachers accountable. I think that is the basis of their reform.
And that's not a bad thing in theory.
In theory.
And I know the governor wants to spend, was it 170-something million?
Yeah, 170.
Which is a big chunk of the surplus.
Right, and that's out of the $1 billion budget surplus. So
right. So, that in itself is not a bad goal, but the devil is always in the details. Correct. And what do the details look like?
Well, $150 million of that, $177.5 million is going to be used for a couple things: raising the base pay around the state to $35,000, which is not a bad idea.
What is it now?
I think it's around 28,000.
That's a significant increase.
Yeah, and now in Des Moines, we're already there, so that money would not affect us. We were already at that level.
But this might help encourage teachers to consider rural Iowa, where
right, correct.
in some cases
that's correct.
Teachers are more needed.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Then there's going to be some stipends of $5,000 to $6,000, I believe, for teachers to teach in high-need areas, whether it's a high-need subject like science or in high-need areas like schools with increased poverty, urban.
So those could be urban or rural.
Right. So that could help in both situations. So those two are pretty good. And then there's the other thing that they're proposing, which a task force has made recommendations on, is a new teacher compensation model that is called career pathways.
Okay.
And this is kind of the one where we have to watch the details, because in theory we would be supportive of having more opportunity for teachers to teach other teachers and help and collaborate.
Right.
But the idea is that there's going to be several levels of teacher compensation, and some of those levels would involve some teachers identified as highly effective or good teachers to be pulled out of classrooms for 30 to 50% of the day to do things as far as collaborate with other teachers, help other teachers, train other teachers. Those details are somewhat fuzzy, and the state has said that they're going to leave that up to local districts to kind of get the
right. So would those teachers be expected to continue with their full class load in addition to doing that work with other teachers?
No, and that's kind of one of the details that in an urban setting like Des Moines we would be very concerned about, and I've expressed this concern to Director Glass, is if you're going to take out teachers, and they also are saying any new teachers would have a reduced class size load.
Okay.
That's another proposal. How is that going to affect class size of the remaining teachers who are teaching full day schedules?
Right.
And that's one of the concerns that we have, because in the past, Director Glass has never really mentioned, and most education reformers try to dismiss how important class size is, even though there are studies out there that show, especially in areas of high poverty, urban settings, smaller class sizes do make a difference.
Right.
And we're afraid if this is done wrong, implemented wrong, we're going to end up with class sizes in the 30s and 40s for the people who are teaching, and you have the person that's teaching half day.
Right.
There's going to be resentment probably from the teachers who have increased class sizes. So that would not be the perfect way to have teachers collaborate.
So often when a Republican at the State House, whether it's the governor or House or Senate Republican leaders, propose something on education, the response from the Des Moines Education Association or the Iowa State Education Association is emphatically negative.
No.
My impression here is this looks pretty good on the surface. Again, providing that there is attention to the details and to some of the concerns that teachers and those on the front lines will have to raise.
Right. And that's always what's most important to us. And one of the reasons that we have seemed to be, I guess, negative is because we've gone through 10 years now, a decade of this reform movement, starting with No Child Left Behind, the accountability movement, and very rarely are the people who are pushing these educators. We have Bill Gates pushes some of this stuff. I don't remember him ever teaching. So a lot of their focus gets to be on accountability for educators and putting all the onus on the educators for all the problems that are out there. Now, we've seen an increase in poverty in this state for children.
Right.
And we don't see any proposals for reform in that area other than to maybe blame the teachers. It's our fault that those kids are not learning, even though...
Well, the way to deal with poverty in this state is to give corporations like the Egyptian Fertilizer Company $251 million in public subsidies, dole out another $70 million to a fertilizer company in western Iowa, and then all that'll trickle down to those poor kids, and they'll be doing just fine.
But no bailouts for poor kids.
No bailouts for poor kids.
Absolutely not. So the reason that sometimes we may sound negative about some of these reform proposals, sometimes we're not always asked. Secondly, we know the effects that some of these reform proposals have had in other states.
Right.
Iowa's been fairly lucky in that we've kind of avoided some of the bad things in Indiana, Wisconsin so far that have really tied teachers, for example, tying teachers' pay to student test scores. We have avoided that so far, and we think that's a bad idea. There's no studies out there that show that really helps student learning.
So what do you say to the folks who say, well, back in the early 90s, Iowa students were top in the nation.
Right.
In several areas of testing.
Right.
And now we're in the middle of the pack. We've seen a precipitous decline in how students are performing based on some standard measurements.
Right.
What do you say to that criticism?
Well, I would say that every study that's done shows an incredible connection between poverty and student achievement. And we've seen a large increase over that time in students living in poverty in this state, partly because of, for example, I can think of some governors who brought in some pretty low-wage jobs in this state, service jobs that don't pay very much, and people still have to be on welfare even though they're working. I mean, that has been. That
by itself doesn't describe the entire problem, right?
No, I mean the poverty though has increased. I think it's like 20% now, if you include even students that are close to poverty. That has increased. We've had an increase in students in not just Des Moines but across the state. English language learning issues where they are coming from families who don't speak English.
Right.
That is an increased challenge. That is different than it was in the 90s. Our state looks different. The children that are coming to the classroom look different now than they used to. They're coming in with many more needs. And I don't think that we've had the state spend money to meet those needs over the last 10, 15 years in any real way.
Folks, we're talking with Andrew Rasmussen with the Des Moines Education Association about the governor's proposal for education reform. You are welcome to join the conversation. It's 244-0077. That's 244-0077 or toll free 855-244-0077. You can also email me at fallonforum@gmail.com. And this is a topic we're going to continue to revisit because it will be a very high-profile discussion in the next legislative session, which begins in just a couple months. Again, join the conversation if you like. Agree or disagree, we always welcome all perspectives. Later in the program, talking agriculture, switching gears, but plenty more to go over on this. I'm really interested in the online education issue, which troubles me a lot. And especially when you take the entire $6,000 state appropriation per student and give it to a private corporation that is essentially allowing that student to open enroll from any part of the state to an educational arrangement where they are basically in front of a screen all day. There's no interaction with a teacher, with a student. Am I overstating the problem, or is this really, I mean, and you may, I really don't know, Andrew, where you stand on the online education thing, but I have deep concerns about it, and I'm glad to see other voices beginning to rise in criticism.
Yeah, we are very concerned about it because it is one of these reforms that we've seen in other states where public money that's given to schools is then siphoned off into private corporations to give them a profit. And that is one of the big drivers of a lot of reforms, is to try to find ways to make more private corporations make money off of our kids.
Well, a $600 billion, quote, industry is what K-12 education is nationwide. I mean, there's got to be some corporate types just drooling to get their hands on that money.
There's two companies that work with the two school districts right now. They're doing online learning. They're both out-of-state corporations. They're very big corporations. And the governor's latest proposal wants to the governor's latest proposal wants to expand that, 1.5 million more, to expand what currently is, I think, 500 student limit to 5,000 students around the state. Now, another issue with this is that it does also set up rural schools who maybe are shrinking in enrollment and looking for a way to survive. This gives them a lifeline to do that. However, they're not gaining any of the money. The corporations, outside corporations, are gaining the money, and they're able to get students from anywhere in the state to attend. And then they can count those kids in their enrollment.
It has a whole new twist to open enrollment.
Yes.
When you think of open enrollment historically, it's a kid from West Des Moines wanting to get into the Des Moines system because of the fantastic education or what do I say, art and culture opportunities, say at Roosevelt.
Sure.
Okay, that was a shameless plug for the school my kids went to. But it's I mean, you have that, it happens the other direction as well.
Right.
And so, but this is unusual. A student in Lyon County could open and enroll to a district in Keokuk.
Correct.
In Southeast Iowa, technically, under this model, under this interpretation of open enrollment.
And then that money would go to that other school district, who would then hand it off to the corporation who's running the online
100% of that that money goes?
I think it's 60%. I think it's a 60-40 split or something.
Okay, so the district still keeps 40%.
They keep 40%.
So that's the incentive for the and rural school districts have been really pushed hard, and I have a lot of empathy for rural school districts.
Sure.
I think
I grew up in one.
I think small schools in rural communities can provide a great opportunity for kids.
Right.
And also, and they also mean a lot to that town as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I know when they closed the school in Russell, that was a big hit to that town
Sure.
down in
Sure.
county, Lucas County, I think.
Yeah.
So it's an issue that that I think raises concern on a number of levels. But are there instances where online education? I mean, right now we have 350 students enrolled in this program.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But you stated that some have a goal of 5,000.
That's the goal in the new proposal, is to expand it over 3 to 5 years into 5,000 students being eligible. Currently, the state law limits the number of students who can take it.
Are there legitimate cases in which this arrangement worked, in which they make sense?
Very limited, I would say. I mean, there might be some homeschool teachers parents who'd want this, but there's ways to do that where you do not have to rely on an out-of-state corporation to do that. I mean, we have the Iowa network, the ICN.
Yes.
I mean, we could do this as a state ourselves without having to give profits to a company. I mean, one of the companies, here's their PE class. They send you a box with a jump rope in it and say, go out and make sure the kid jump ropes. That's their PE class. I mean, it's
Really?
a very limited group of people who would be served by this. I can see online learning where it's in a school with a teacher, as has been done with the ICN in the past, where school districts will share a class perhaps.
But and you're serious. So the corporation mails the student
Yes.
a jump rope and says, "Hey, go out and enjoy your PE class."
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
Yes, that's serious. I've
And
seen the box.
They
with the jump rope
get
in it.
away with that.
Yes, they do. And
How
that's
do-
another thing that's a problem with giving this money to out-of-state corporations. They're not accountable to the local community. They're not accountable to even the state, really. I mean, the state could make them accountable, but we've seen how that goes when we ask the private corporations to voluntarily follow the state.
That's just really. I mean, what if the student? There's no monitoring of the kid's jump roping to make sure he's actually fulfilling his PE requirement.
Exactly.
And there's no even assurance that he's using the jump rope for its intended purpose at all. What if he goes bonkers and decides to strangle his little sister with it? Will there be a
And we have
lawsuit
an
against the
interesting- we have an
corporation for
interesting
providing
case.
a weapon? That it just
Yeah. It's it just opens up a lot of problems that we don't even really need. We have the capacity in the state to do online learning for those few students who need it through the state. But I mean, and there's a lot of. I'm a public school fan. I think there's a lot to be said about having kids go to a school with other kids, diverse kids, where they have to sit and work with other people and learn how to interact with other students that aren't like them, and have a teacher in front of them, and be able to interact with that teacher and have that human interaction part. I think that's really an important part of the education process. Maybe it's not measurable by a test, but it's as important as that test.
Yeah. So where does the online education program, whatever you want to call it, initiative fit into the education reform proposal, the broader proposal that Branstad
that would
put
be
on the table?
1.5 million of that 177.5 million is for an expansion of the Iowa online learning.
Okay.
And so that would be
And that would that be to the 5,000 student target? Or
that would be to try to provide that for the 5,000.
So
students.
where do you see lawmakers coming down on that proposal? Is there going to be opposition?
I would think there would be opposition, and the Senate is still democratically held, so I think that there will be opposition to that. I think they tried to limit the number last year when it was first brought up.
Is this a partisan issue?
Strange enough, a lot of the education reform is less partisan than you'd think. We have a lot of Democrats who have bad ideas about education too, and so we find ourselves
Well put.
Yeah, we find ourselves struggling in that we really don't have a party that agrees with us. We have people maybe in both parties. I mean, there's Republicans should agree with us in that we think local control is important rather than having a standardized school system that's run by the federal government or the state
government.
Right.
I would now you hear Republican candidates running for office and saying as much.
Right.
But when the rubber meets the road in the policy making process, does that not happen?
It doesn't happen. I live in a district that has a Republican legislator. I talk to them about education issues every year. they shake their head. They say, I agree. But when it comes time to vote, Republicans are very good at making everybody vote the way they want them to. So
the leadership
they've got good sheep herders.
Well, and you see that on both sides. But again,
Right.
I think the Republican Party leaders have tended to be even more effective at getting everyone to fall in line.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the online issue, for some reason, this has become more of Republicans tend to support it. Democrats have tended to oppose expanding it.
Right.
And why is that? I mean, is there money coming in?
It's the whole rely on private enterprise to save our schools. I mean, this is everything. If you
it's the anti-government thing, period.
Right. Have you read the book Shock Doctrine?
No.
The basis of that is that you create a crisis, and then you bring in the private enterprise to solve the crisis. And this is kind of the same thing with this education reform. Is they've created a crisis through the years, even starting back in Reagan when they started starting to look at test scores and our kids aren't keeping up. And they've created that crisis, and now they're presenting these options that are private enterprise to solve the problem. Like, okay, you got a problem with test scores? Well, here's an outside corporation that'll come in and train your teachers how to get better test scores. And by the way, we'll write the test and make money off of that too. So it's kind of that shock doctrine thing. They've created a crisis, which I don't really think there is this big crisis. Test scores have gone down, but that is because of the poverty and struggles our kids are going through.
Increased ESL.
Yeah, and increased
students,
ESL students, and just the change in the change in culture, kids playing video games, watching TV, and things like that.
And part of it, I mean, sometimes if you fall in rankings, it may mean that other states are doing a better job
of taking tests.
Yeah, taking tests in this case. Yeah,
of taking tests. I mean, Georgia probably had higher score. Atlanta, Georgia probably had higher scores than Des Moines, but they were cheating on their tests. They were having systematic cheating in their schools.
Really?
Because the pressure to have high test scores was so
district sanctioned cheating on tests in Atlanta, Georgia. Who knew?
Sanctioned cheating on testing. So that's a danger of some of this reform, and so that Our position is we would love to do reform that's for the kids, not for the test companies and just to make the politicians feel better that test scores went up so they can run on it. We want to do reform that's good for kids.
Yeah. Well, keep at it, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I'll be interested in continuing to track this conversation. We will have more local experts coming in to discuss it with us as the thing moves through the process. When we return, we're going to talk about Mitt Romney and a new word that he has found to describe public policy he doesn't like. He calls it gifts. We'll talk about that.
Can't wait to get mine.
Can't wait to get your gifts,
Yes.
right. I do want to thank the Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club for sponsoring the Fallon Forum. I want to thank Gateway Market for being the sponsor for this segment of our show. Gateway is at Woodland and ML King in the Sherman Hill neighborhood on the edge of downtown Des Moines. Folks, it's our neighborhood grocery store in downtown. Check it out. They've got everything you could possibly want, from food to cosmetics to wine, cheese, meat, vegetables, a lot of it from local sources, and a fantastic cafe. Cafe open for breakfast, lunch, and supper. Open 7 days a week. Check them out, folks. Gateway Market at 20th and 20th and Woodland. And tell them thank you for supporting the alternative to right-wing radio. We'll be back in a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, it's Ed Fallon. I want to tell you about saving energy and saving money. Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. And Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Now, I had Tim over for an audit last month, and I was amazed, I tell you, at how much energy was going through the roof, out the windows, the back door. You get it. So before the cold winds of winter really blow hard, give Tim a call at 802-2801. That's 802-2801.
Host is a locally owned restaurant in downtown Des Moines that focuses its food and philosophy on embracing simplicity. The majority of Host's food is from local farmers who practice sustainable and health-conscious agriculture. Much of what you'll find on your plate is a familiar comfort food, presented with a modern and tasty interpretation. Host is open for lunch Monday through Friday from 11 to 2, and also available for private dinner events and special themed dinners throughout the month. So, check out Host at 13th and Locust in Des Moines.
With warm weather finally here, it's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Babers Neighbors. That's Babers Neighbors, Ode to Jones. Love that tune. I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our program. George Naylor is going to be with us for the final segment of the show, but we got a little bit of a gabbing to do about ex-politician Mitt Romney. But I got to ask, speaking of education, I'm always curious about what it's like to be a bike and try to make it through our K through 12 education system. I mean, you got some unusual considerations, Bike, but how has it gone for you?
Well, considering, who I am, and I was actually really lucky. I was one of the only bikes in my class, so I got made fun of a lot. But I would say I received a fairly decent education. Would you say so, Ed? Am I smart?
Yeah, you're fairly smart. Yeah, you've kept me alive so far through maybe 55,000 miles, so I can commend you for that. And again, I would commend our public schools for that as well. So are you off to higher education now?
Yes, I want my PhD.
In what?
I haven't decided yet. How many of those can you get?
As many as you have time for, but I keep you pretty busy, so I would think in terms of one and leave it at that, okay?
There is a lot of schools that allow you to do such things online.
Okay, first of all, there are a lot of schools that allow you to do things online. And secondly, that's a bad idea, okay? All right, folks, out of the mouths of bikes. Anyway, Mitt Romney. I love this. I saw this article. I thought, my gosh, if he'd done this before the election, it would have been one of those 47% comments or the lack of support for the auto bailout comment or his call for illegal immigrants to, quote, self-deport. Or maybe his changes in on his position on abortion, on guns, on other issues. I mean, this is just this is right in the genre of Romney flubs. But, you know, I don't think it's flubbing for him because I really think he believes he does not understand the vast majority of America. He's been born with a whole drawer full of silver spoons in his mouth, and he's only added to them. He claimed that this is a call, and I'm really curious as to how somebody got into this phone call, but this is a call set up by Romney's finance team with some of his bigger donors, and I have no idea how many were on the call or how somebody must have reported. Somebody who donated must have reported back to the Associated Press because this call to donors, Romney told people during this call that Obama won re-election, not because Romney screwed up his campaign, not because he made all these huge missteps, not because Obama ran a better campaign. Obama won because of the, quote, gifts that he had already promised to blacks, to Hispanics, to young voters, and because of the president's attempt to paint Romney as anti-immigrant. Well, actually, when you say that illegal immigrants should self-deport, that could be construed as anti-immigrant. So anyway, it just astounds me that he says this is a bad idea. That among the gifts, okay, so what are the gifts that Romney's talking about? He cited, and this is during the call to donors, he specifically cited free health care, and he used the words in perpetuity, which he said was highly motivated to black and Hispanic voters. Like the rest of us don't want health care? I mean, in perpetuity is a silly term to describe to anything that refers to a finite human being. But yeah, it's like healthcare is a black and Hispanic issue. Okay. And Romney also, of course, indicated that one of the other gifts that Obama gave away, or that used to bribe voters, he's implying this is kind of a way to bribe voters to support him. Hey, I'll give you free health care for the rest of your life if you support me. Okay. So what else? The quote amnesty, he called it amnesty to the children of illegal immigrants. Now we call that the DREAM Act or deferred action or some version of what has been proposed to allow those kids of illegal immigrants, kids who were brought here as children who had no option, to give them the chance to gain full citizenship through furthering their education and demonstrating good citizenship. So he blasted that as a gift. He also blasted Obama's gifts to young women, and that would be free contraception, which is, of course, covered in the president's health care plan. And, free. Okay. Free is a funny word to use because you pay for it one way or the other. So anyway, I mean, Romney, the guy is so out of touch. I mean, how many people who voted for him really believe that you would have had somebody who could even remotely understand your problems, your challenges, your issues? Because what he's calling gifts, no, those aren't gifts. Those are good policy decisions. Or if you really don't think they're good, then they're bad policy decisions. But they're policy changes. That's what government does to address issues that we can't deal with individually. It's the collective will being manifest in this case through some executive orders, largely what Romney is referring to. So I'm just shocked that he calls these gifts. I wonder if the provisions in the tax code that allow one to shelter a whole bunch of one's income offshore is considered a gift. I wonder if Mitt Romney is grateful for the, quote, gift of that tax haven that the federal tax code provides. I wonder if Romney is grateful for the gift that has led to so many handouts, subsidies, incentives to corporations to accomplish, in some cases, very little with a heck of a lot of public money. I wonder if he considers those gifts. I wonder if he considers farm subsidies gifts. What about the subsidies that help offshore oil drilling, or the giving away, basically the free leasing of public lands for grazing, for drilling, for all sorts of other private purposes, for purposes that benefit a particular interest or constituency? I wonder if he considers those gifts. So it's just it is shocking to me that a man who is so out of touch with reality could have gotten this far, could have done even this well in a presidential election. Yeah, maybe Bob Vander Plaats is right. Maybe we need a bold conservative, at least somebody who has some connection to the people. But of course, in Bob Vander Plaats's mind, bold conservative really is not very conservative at all. It's somebody who wants to, the conservative hallmark, of course, is a government that is interested in assuring that, again, Republicans will say they want less government, more personal responsibility, more individual liberty. But when you look at what Bob Vander Plaats really wants, it ain't none of that. So, yeah, maybe the best that this very dysfunctional Republican Party can do, a party of an interesting coalition of theocrats and corporate interests, and then those who genuinely somehow buy the smaller government, more personal liberty Kool-Aid, even though the party has, is doing so much to thwart that. It's an interesting dilemma to be in as a Republican Party. And I think Chris Rance knows this by given some of his recent comments. And maybe Mitt Romney is the best they can do as a candidate. Somebody who is able to change his position as a chameleon changes its color, almost on command, who has limitless amounts of money, pretty much, but whose big shortcoming is he has no clue about what most Americans are struggling with. And he apparently thinks that if a public policy decision benefits a core constituency of his, it's good policy. But if it benefits a constituency group that tends not to support him, that supports his opponent, then it is merely a gift. Anyway, Mitt Romney, bye-bye. Anyway, so maybe you're upset about the election, okay? Plenty of people still are. There are folks, you could be one of the 28,000 people in Louisiana who have now signed a petition to secede. I still want to see how the map looks because it's going to have to include some interesting states up to the north as well with the Southern Coalition of secession states. Again, I don't think this is really going very, very far, but it is it's a better response to your frustration. I mean, yeah, the best response to your frustration if you are unhappy with the election results is to, continue to stay active, continue to be organized, or maybe to try to understand why Obama won, why marriage equality won in 4 states, why medical marijuana is moving forward, why the first openly gay lesbian woman was elected to the U.S. Senate. There's all sorts of things to understand here about why the election turned out. Focus on that, but don't do this. Do not do this. Okay, this is from Gilbert, Arizona. A woman, she ran over her husband because he did not vote in last week's presidential election. Okay, the police down there say that Holly Solomon was opposed to Obama, so much so, and she was so upset that her husband didn't go to the polls that she chased her husband around a parking lot. I'm going to guess it was a Walmart parking lot because those are big and you can have a lot of room to track down your husband there. She circled him, and as he hid behind a light pole, she struck him and pinned him under an SUV, her SUV. Of course, I before this discussion even began, I knew it had to be an SUV. She pinned him under her SUV as he tried to flee. So Holly Solomon, told police she was just trying to scare him. I guess that would work, but accidentally stepped on the accelerator. Well, maybe she shouldn't be driving at all. She was booked on an aggravated assault count. The husband said Solomon, the woman, the wife, believed her family was going to face hardship if Obama were reelected. Well, you know what? She was right. The family is indeed facing hardship because now this hospitalized husband is going to have to somehow pay for medical care. I'm really curious. The article does not say, but I'm curious to know as to whether they have insurance. And if so, if not, rather, will they accept public care? Will they take advantage of any of the provisions of, quote, Obamacare to allow them to have this guy's health care needs met, if indeed he has to spend any amount of time in the hospital at all? Anyway, that is not the way to deal with your frustration over the election or any election. I know, after George Bush was elected the first time and the second time, a lot of people on my side of the political aisle were threatening to move to Canada. And after about a week, that stopped. Actually, I do know one couple that did move to Canada. But I don't know folks who were threatening to secede. I don't know wives who were running over husbands or husbands who were taking out their electoral angst on their spouses. There are better ways to deal with problems. Again, a bad combination. An angry housewife, a failed election from that person's point of view, an SUV, a Walmart parking lot, and again, I'm going to just fill in the blanks on my assumptions about healthcare. No healthcare. So anyway, we'll see what happens with that story. I mean, it's not really much of a story, is it?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, Bike.
It's actually like Americans have no right to threaten to secede from the Union. It was decided on April 9th, 1865.
Okay. So you won't be signing any petitions.
Any Americans who agitate to secede are guilty of sedition.
Okay, so we have a lot of people who could
according
be.
According to the Constitution.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's
That could really fill the prisons. Anyway, that's another conversation. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk about agriculture. George Naylor, I think, will be joining us. Don't see him yet, but hopefully he'll be with us in a few minutes. I want to talk more about the GMO situation, about local foods, and about farm subsidies. I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our program. Fighting Burrito is now located at 13th and Locust. That is one happening corner in downtown Des Moines. They've got fantastic burritos for great prices, and some of them with extremely clever names. And the big attraction about Fighting Burrito is you can make your own. They've got a huge array of options: rice, beans, guacamole, all the usual stuff, plus some interesting stuff. And you can design your own burrito at a very affordable price. Again, check them out, folks. Fighting Burrito at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines. We'll be back in a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait, howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
Hi, folks. It's Ed Fallon here. Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust. You've probably been there for their award-winning, nationally recognized lunch specials. Well, now Proof is open Thursdays and Fridays for supper. And here's where the chefs really get creative. Let me tell you, they're like artists, okay? I've been there, and it is one of the best meals I have had in Des Moines. I've heard that from other people. You got to check it out. Proof for supper, Thursdays and Fridays, and also the second Saturday of the month. Do not assume you can get in. Make reservations. Contact Proof Restaurant online at proofrestaurant.com or 244-0655. That's 244-0655. Hi, folks. Ed Fallon here. When it is time to entertain, think of Gateway Market. Let them handle the details. Gateway offers a wide variety of stress-free options like cut-to-order cheese and charcuterie. There's a delicious olive bar and a wide variety of chef-prepared dips and spreads. Or let the catering team take care of the entire event, right down to the wine and beer pairings. The expert floral designers can even customize the perfect centerpieces. So stop by or visit Gateway Market for more information. Gateway is at Woodland and ML King in downtown Des Moines. Good food, great entertaining.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Pumptown's Bicycle bringing us back to our conversation here on the Fallon Forum. And things are always a moving target here, and the target just moved. My guest, George Naylor. Don't know what happened to George. George is an interesting fellow. Been farming a long time out in Greene County. Featured in Michael Pollan's book, Omnivore's Dilemma. I've known him a long time. Had him on the show a while back, and thought it would be a good conversation with the Farm Bill. Now that the election is done and the Farm Bill probably up again for consideration, thought it might be good to talk about that, about the defeat of Prop 37 in California, and also about the whole local foods movement. And I can certainly talk about that. But folks, wide open. You're welcome to call into this conversation with any. We'll open it up to any topic you want to talk about today. 244-0077, 244-0077, or toll free. It's 855-244-0077. 855-244-0077. And my email address is fallonforum@gmail.com. Okay, so on Prop 37, I do not understand why folks are so afraid of folks, meaning Monsanto, DuPont, those folks, those corporate people, why they are so afraid of having the ingredients, having the presence of a GMO crop indicated on a label. The folks who lost this campaign, I mean, our side spent $7.3 million, I think it was, in California, and we're outspent almost 6-1. That's tough. It's hard to win an election when you're outspent 6-1. Paul Wellstone did it, but it's unusual, very unusual. So right now, the forces of good are fighting back and recommending a boycott. Boycotting the organic and natural, what they're calling trader brands that helped kill Prop 37. Okay, so it was called the California Right to Know GMO Labeling Initiative, narrowly defeated last week. And they're saying here it's a $46 million advertising blitz. I thought it was 44, but yeah, I'm not surprised it's gone up. Among the largest bankrollers of the No on 37 campaign were some big multinational food and beverage companies whose subsidiaries make billions selling some of your favorite organic and natural brands. We have talked about this on my show before. We've talked about this because some of these huge corporations have bought up brands, and you don't even know they own these brands. And those corporations have actually helped to try to tweak organic standards, have tried to influence the membership on the organic certification board, and with some success. So buyer beware. Consumers be paying attention. Understand who owns what and why it matters. Okay, so some of the brands mentioned here are Kashi, Honest Tea, Naked Juice, Muir Glen, Horizon, Silk, and Morningstar Farms. I've heard of some of these. See, and I tend to buy directly from local farmers or through gateway markets, stuff that is sold, or that is sold to them by local farmers. So I don't usually get a lot of these brands. But they're saying the pro Prop 37 folks are saying it's time to boycott the companies and brands whose dirty money confused and scared millions of California voters into voting no on Prop 37. Because there was a time not too far before the election where the support for Prop 37 was very high. The organizers say it's time to plaster their Facebook pages with this message, quote, "We won't support you until you support us. It's time to call their consumer hotlines, complain to the store managers where you buy your organic and natural products. It's time to tarnish their wholly organic and natural images, to expose their hypocrisy and greed." And I'm saying, well, okay, I like the spunk. I like the general idea of a boycott, but it needs to be focused. You can't. You're never. Boycotts rarely work if they paint a broad brush. If you try to bring too many entities into the effort, I mean, the problem is it just gets too confusing, too hard to manage. I've seen a couple very successful examples of boycotts in this venue. You might remember that Nestle's. This is way back in the 70s, 80s, I think. Nestle's was selling formula in Africa, convincing African mothers that it was superior to breast milk. People were dying because of this, and they were pressured. And Nestle was not the only company doing that, but they became the target. They were the focus, and a group called InFact mobilized people to pressure Nestle to back out, and they were successful. When InFact was successful in that campaign, it shifted its focus to General Electric. The goal was to convince corporations to get out of the business of making nuclear weapons. Now, GE was only one example. There's certainly lots and lots of companies involved with nuclear weapons production, but it worked because GE not only was big, but it was the laser beam on GE, not bothering with Lockheed or I can't. What am I thinking of? All the other Boeing, all the other corporations that make military hardware, that make nuclear weapon parts. They focused on General Electric. Partly it was a good focus because General Electric also, for example, sold CAT scanners to hospitals. And when you could convince a local hospital not to buy a GE CAT scanner because of its concern about nuclear war, that started getting GE's attention. So again, boycotts work, but they got to be focused. My concern is this is all over the place. But that said, I think it's a good idea. And if that's where it's going to go, my hat's off to the organizers because it takes a lot of work to put anything like this together. But some of the companies that donated to the anti-Prop 37 initiative, PepsiCo, Pepsi. Don't like the stuff, maybe you do. PepsiCo donated $2.5 million. $2.5 million. Again, they own Naked Juice, Tostitos Organic, and Tropicana Organic. I did not know that. Kraft donated $2 million. A couple of the natural and organic brands that Kraft owns, Boca Burgers and Back to Nature. Safeway. I did not realize that Safeway was a part of this. Again, when I have to choose grocery stores, I've often thought, well, Safeway is certainly better than Walmart, but why go to Safeway when you've got better local options that are loaned locally and don't apparently support or oppose labeling of GMOs? They donated $2 million. Okay, Coca-Cola donated $1.7 million. General Mills, $1.2 million. ConAgra, that'd be a good focus for us here in Iowa. ConAgra donated $1.2 million. Kellogg donated $791,000, under $1 million. Smuckers, you think of jams? Well, also think of Knudsen Juice. Think of Santa Cruz Organic Products. They donated $500,000. And Unilever, that's Ben & Jerry's. Ouch. My favorite ice cream, purchased by a corporation that donated donated to the defeat of Prop 37, almost $500,000 there. That's the most painful to me because I like Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and Ben Cohen's a friend of mine. Ben, they don't own it anymore. They sold it, and apparently Unilever has sold out. Anyway, Dean Foods also contributed $250,000, and they own Horizon, Silk, and White Wave. There were some bigger players too that aren't mentioned here for some reason. But again, I'm glad to see people fighting back. They're fighting back as they should. And again, my only hope is that the boycott will become more focused, more pointed. It does not work very well to spread it over an entire class of products. Okay, so again, I apologize that my guest didn't make it in. Would have enjoyed his take on this issue, but also on the issue of farm subsidies. I'll be back tomorrow. We got plenty more to talk about on this program this week, and I am blanking on who my guest is tomorrow, but I will tell you very shortly. It will be yes, Ron Yarnell. Sorry, Ron, he forgot about you. Ron has been on this program before, and he's he grew up. His hometown is Lindenhurst, New York, which was right in the path of Hurricane Sandy, which has had an interesting experience, a very painful experience. But we'll talk with him and with some residents from Lindenhurst about the experience of being in Sandy's path, what the cleanup and repair work is like, and also kind of the whole bigger picture perspective on Hurricane Sandy and climate change. Also tomorrow, Stephen Toothman. Stephen is with Stand for Iowa. Stephen will be joining me to talk about the Citizens United Initiative and campaign finance reform. It's a pretty big issue. And also tomorrow, Mary Beth Gardam. She's been involved with the Move to Amend initiative to take away a corporation's right to personhood, which again never should have been established. So we have a pretty full slate tomorrow. Hopefully everybody will be here, and hopefully you'll be back as well, folks. I want to thank Proof Restaurant for sponsoring this segment of the program. Went to Proof last night before going to One Iowa Sweet, a quality event, and as always, a fantastic dinner. Scallops. I didn't know scallops could be so tender that they pretty much melt in your mouth. Of course, these aren't local scallops. I understand that, but I will want to do our part to support the shrimp industry and the scallop industry, the seafood industry in Louisiana, despite the problems that runoff from the upper Midwest have created for that industry. But I tell you, Proof, they know how to do scallops, and they know how to do cheese. The cheese at Proof is just out of this world. They've selected some of the finest cheeses I've ever had, and also my guest, she said the salad was the best she'd ever had. It's a kind of a mixed green salad with a very fine dressing on it, and cranberries and other stuff. Again, you should definitely check out Proof. They're now open from Wednesday through Saturday night for dinner, and again, highly recommended. Check them out at 13th and Locust. We'll be back tomorrow, folks, but stay tuned. In the meantime, Bradshaw will be with you at 1:30. Thanks again for tuning in. I want to thank my producer, Maddie Arrington, and I want to thank the Webcast Live Studio for providing a space to conduct this broadcast.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we